can't sleep. Haven't slept properly in 3 days. I keep hearing it, whispered in languages that died millennia ago, echoing through my dreams like a call that's been waiting eons for someone to answer. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'm a biblical archaeologist, or I was until I found the tablets, until I started connecting the dots that no one was supposed to connect, until I realized that everything we've been taught about the origin of Yahweh worship is wrong. It started innocently enough, a dig site in northern Saudi Arabia near the ancient trade routes. We uncovered pre-Islamic inscriptions, nothing unusual there. But then Marcus, my research partner, found the first anomaly, a stone fragment, older than it had any right to be, with carved symbols that made his face go white. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the desert wind. "This mentions Yahweh, but it's dated to before Abraham was even born." I laughed then. I actually laughed.
"Impossible," I said. "You must be misreading the script." But I wasn't laughing 3 hours later when we found 17 more fragments, all predating Israel, all calling upon the same name. The implications are terrifying. If Yahweh was known before Israel, before the covenant, before the chosen people, then what does that make us? What does that make our understanding of divine revelation? I'm recording this because I need someone to know what I've discovered, what I'm still discovering, because the deeper I dig into this mystery, the more I realize that something vast and ancient has been watching human history unfold, something that existed before nations and tribes and religions, something that has been calling its own name across the millennia. The nightmares are getting worse. I see him now, Enosh, Adam's grandson, standing in the primordial darkness beside a fire that seems older than creation itself. His mouth moves, forming syllables that shouldn't exist yet. The name pours from his lips like water from a broken dam. Genesis 4:26 has haunted biblical scholars for centuries. At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. The Hebrew word hushal, translated as began, can also mean to profane or to make common. The ancient rabbis knew something we've forgotten. They interpreted this passage not as the beginning of worship, but as the moment when the sacred name of God became accessible to humanity. But accessible from where? From whom? I've been cross-referencing the Saudi fragments with Mesopotamian texts, and the pattern is unmistakable. References to Yahweh El Elyon, the Most High God, scattered across cultures that should never have known these names. It's as if the divine name was planted in human consciousness from the very beginning, waiting to be remembered rather than discovered. In my dreams, Enosh turns and looks at me across the centuries. His eyes are not human eyes. They're older, deeper, filled with knowledge that predates language itself. When he speaks the name, reality fractures around him. Time folds, space bends. And somewhere in the distance, I hear an echo, a response from something unimaginably vast. I wake up screaming. I found him, Melchizedek. Not just references to him, but actual archaeological evidence of his existence. A seal from ancient Salem, bearing the inscription Melchizedek, priest of El Elyon, king of peace. The carbon dating puts it at 2000 BCE, exactly when Abraham would have encountered him according to biblical chronology. But that's not what's keeping me awake. It's what the seal doesn't say that terrifies me. No genealogy, no tribal affiliation, no mention of gods plural. Just priest of El Elyon, as if he emerged from nothing and nowhere, already knowing the name that Abraham thought was his family's secret. I've been studying the Genesis 14 account obsessively. When Melchizedek blesses Abraham, he invokes the Lord God Most High, Yahweh El Elyon. Abraham doesn't correct him, doesn't explain who his God is. He recognizes the name immediately. How is that possible? How does a Canaanite priest king know the covenant name of God? How does he possess authority that Abraham instantly acknowledges? The seal is sitting on my desk as I record this. Sometimes, in the corner of my vision, I swear I see it glowing, not with reflected light, but with something deeper, something that emanates from within the stone itself. Marcus thinks I'm losing my mind. Maybe I am, but I can't stop now. The mystery is too vast, too important, and too dangerous. Because the more I learn about Melchizedek, the more I realize he wasn't just a priest. He was a preview, a glimpse of something that transcends human categories entirely. They're everywhere. References to Yahweh worship outside Israel, scattered across the ancient world like breadcrumbs leading to some cosmic truth too large for any single people to contain. I've been following the trail of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, priest of Midian, descendant of Abraham through Keturah, but not an inheritor of the covenant promise. According to Exodus 18, when Moses tells him about Yahweh's mighty acts in Egypt, Jethro responds, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods. Now I know. Not now I learn. Not now I discover." The Hebrew suggests recognition, confirmation of something already familiar. I've found Midianite inscriptions in the Arabian Peninsula that predate the Exodus by centuries. They mention Yahweh of Teman, Yahweh of the south. These people already knew the name before Moses ever fled to their territory, which raises the horrifying question: what was Moses really doing in Midian for 40 years? Was he learning something new, or was he being prepared to remember something ancient? The archaeological evidence suggests that Yahweh worship spread along the Arabian trade routes carried by nomadic tribes who had no connection to Israel. Copper mines in Timnah, Egyptian inscriptions in Sinai, Nabatean texts in Jordan, all containing variations of the divine name. It's as if the name was already there, already woven into the fabric of human consciousness, waiting for the right moment to emerge into recorded history. But waiting for what, or whom? I can't get Job out of my head. He appears in my dreams now, sitting in the ashes of his former life, his body covered in sores, his face turned toward heaven. But his eyes are filled with a certainty that terrifies me. Job lived in Uz, not Israel, possibly Edom, possibly northern Arabia. He knew nothing of Moses' law, nothing of the covenant promises. Yet throughout his ordeal, he appeals to Yahweh, to El Shaddai, to the Almighty. He speaks of God with an intimacy that rivals David's Psalms, chapter 19, verse 25. I've read it 100 times, and it still makes my skin crawl. I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. A Redeemer. This non-Israelite, this ancient man from the dawn of history, speaks of a Redeemer with prophetic clarity that points to Christ himself. How? How did he possess such revelation? And his friends Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, Zophar the Naamathite, all foreigners, all engaging in sophisticated theological debate about divine justice. They quote what sound like ancient proverbs about God's character. They demonstrate familiarity with concepts that wouldn't be formally revealed to Israel for generations. Where did they learn these things? From whom? I've been researching the land of Uz, following geographical clues in the text. Everything points to the same region where I found the Saudi fragments, the same area where Melchizedek's seal emerged, the same trade routes where Midianite inscriptions mention Yahweh's name. It's all connected, all part of a pattern too vast to see from any single perspective. But when I step back, when I try to grasp the full scope of what I'm uncovering, I feel something watching me, something ancient and patient, something that has been waiting for someone to finally see the truth that Yahweh was never contained by Israel, that the revelation never belonged to just one people, that the name has been calling to humanity since the beginning, waiting for us to remember what we've always known. Marcus left today, packed his gear, booked a flight back to Chicago, and told me I needed professional help. Maybe he's right, but I can't stop now. Not when I'm so close to understanding. Balaam. The final piece of the puzzle, Numbers 22 to 24, tells his story, and it's the most unsettling of all. A professional diviner from Mesopotamia, hired by Israel's enemies to curse God's chosen people. Yet when he opens his mouth, blessings flow out instead. Prophecies so profound they're included in Scripture itself. But here's what should shake us to our foundations. Balaam doesn't learn about Yahweh from Israelites. The narrative suggests he already knows the divine name, already understands how to approach this God. He builds 7 altars, offers bulls and rams, following ritual patterns that align perfectly with Yahweh's requirements. How does he know these things? I've been tracing Balaam's origins, following the textual clues back to Pethor in Mesopotamia, the same region where the earliest Yahweh inscriptions have been found, the same area where Sumerian texts mention El Elyon, the same cultural sphere that produced the flood narratives that parallel Noah's account, chapter 24, verse 17, Balaam's most famous prophecy, "A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel." This foreign seer, this enemy diviner, somehow possesses messianic revelation that rivals anything given to Israel's own prophets. He speaks of a coming king, a star that will guide seekers to their salvation. Centuries later, wise men from the east, possibly Balaam's own descendants, follow that star to Bethlehem. They weren't Jews, they weren't part of the covenant community, yet they knew to look for the promised king. They knew to bring gifts fit for deity. The pattern is inescapable. Yahweh's revelation has always transcended ethnic boundaries. The name has always been universal, calling to prepared hearts across every culture, every nation, every generation. I understand now. The horror of it, The beauty of it, the overwhelming scope of what I've uncovered. Exodus 3:14. Moses asks for God's name at the burning bush, and the answer comes back, I am who I am. Not I am who I will become or I am who I was, but I am. Present tense, eternal present, existing outside the constraints of time and tribal boundaries. The burning bush wasn't the beginning of Yahweh's self-revelation. It was a continuation, a recognition, a remembering of something that had always been true. Enosh calling on the name in the primordial darkness. Melchizedek blessing Abraham with words that transcend genealogy. Jethro recognizing Yahweh's supremacy. Job trusting in his Redeemer. Balaam prophesying the coming star. They weren't anomalies or exceptions. They were previews, glimpses of a truth too big for ethnic boundaries, too vast for national containers. Evidence that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was always the God of all nations, working in ways we couldn't imagine, revealing himself to hearts prepared to receive him. The archaeological evidence supports what the biblical text has been telling us all along. Yahweh was known throughout the ancient Near East, from the Sinai Peninsula to the Arabian Desert, from Mesopotamia to the mountains of Seir. The name appears in contexts that shatter our assumptions about religious exclusivity. But this raises questions that penetrate to the heart of everything we believe. If Yahweh was known before Israel, if worship of the true God extended beyond the boundaries of the chosen people, then what was Israel's role? What was the purpose of the covenant? And the answer came to me in a dream, but it wasn't really a dream, more like a vision, a revelation that felt older than consciousness itself. I saw Jesus teaching on a hillside, his disciples gathered around him, but behind them, in the shadows, I saw the others. Enosh, still carrying the fire of that first altar. Melchizedek, bread and wine in his hands. Jethro, wise and patient. Job, scarred but vindicated. Balaam, no longer reluctant but filled with wonder. They were all there, all connected by threads of light that stretched across history. And Jesus spoke, his words echoing through time. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, all nations. The mystery comes full circle. Israel wasn't chosen because God was limited to one people. Israel was chosen because God's love for all peoples required a specific strategy, a particular revelation that would ultimately reach every corner of the earth. The name that Enosh first called upon has become the most widely known divine name in human history. Christians, Jews, Muslims, all trace their faith back to the same source. The revelation that seemed exclusive was always meant to be universal, but the implications go deeper still. If Yahweh's self-revelation has always transcended human boundaries, if the divine name has always been calling to prepared hearts across cultures and centuries, then how many other stories remain to be discovered? How many other archaeological sites hold fragments of this universal truth? They're shutting down the dig. The funding has been pulled, my research credentials questioned, my findings dismissed as speculative, theology masquerading as archaeology. But they can't unsee what I've uncovered. They can't bury the truth forever. The tablets are being confiscated, shipped to various museums where they'll be filed away and forgotten. The inscriptions will be cataloged as artifacts of uncertain provenance and questionable authenticity. The seal of Melchizedek will disappear into some basement storage facility, but I've made copies, digital recordings, photographic evidence. This journal itself is a record of discovery that will outlive their attempts at suppression, because the truth is too vast to contain, too important to hide. Somewhere, in languages we've never heard, in places we've never imagined, hearts prepared by grace continue to call upon the name of the Lord. The God who said I am continues to reveal himself in ways that transcend our understanding, that break through our boundaries, that challenge our assumptions about how divine love operates in the world. I'm leaving Saudi Arabia today. The authorities have made it clear that I'm no longer welcome. My visa has been revoked, my equipment confiscated, my local contacts warned to avoid me. But as I pack the last of my personal belongings, I feel something I haven't felt in months, peace. The terror is gone. The nightmares have stopped, because I understand now what I was really experiencing. It wasn't fear, it was awe. The kind of reverent terror that comes from encountering something infinitely greater than yourself. The kind of overwhelming recognition that accompanies divine revelation. The name I've been hearing whispered in my dreams wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. The ancient voices calling across the millennia weren't warnings, they were welcomes. I've been chosen to uncover this mystery not because I'm particularly gifted or deserving, but because this truth needs to be told. Because this generation, like every generation before it, needs to remember what we've always known but keep forgetting. that Yahweh's love has no boundaries, that divine revelation transcends human categories, that the invitation to know God, to call upon His name, has been extended to every heart willing to receive it. I'm back in Chicago now, officially unemployed and effectively blacklisted from academic archaeology. But my email inbox is flooded with messages from scholars around the world who've heard whispers of my discoveries, fragments of similar findings from their own research, pieces of the same vast puzzle. A linguist from Oxford has found Yahweh variations in Celtic inscriptions. An anthropologist in Papua New Guinea has discovered tribal traditions that echo the divine name. A historian studying Native American petroglyphs has uncovered symbols that correspond to Hebrew representations of the Tetragrammaton. The pattern is global. The revelation is universal. The name has been planted in human consciousness from the very beginning, waiting to be remembered rather than discovered. But there's more, always more. The mystery deepens with every new piece of evidence, every additional connection. Because if Yahweh's self-revelation has always been universal, if the divine name has been calling to humanity across cultures and centuries, then the story isn't finished. It's still unfolding. The dreams have returned, but they're different now. Instead of ancient altars and primordial fires, I see the future. Churches and synagogues and mosques scattered across the globe, all connected by that same thread of revelation. Believers praying in languages not yet invented, calling upon the name in voices not yet born. And somewhere, connecting past and future, I see Him, Jesus, Yeshua, the one whose name means Yahweh saves. He stands at the intersection of all times, all places, all peoples. In Him, the mystery finds its fulfillment. The name that was whispered to Enosh, blessed by Melchizedek, recognized by Jethro, trusted by Job, and prophesied by Balaam, finally takes human form. The wise men who followed Balaam's star to Bethlehem weren't converts to Judaism. They were representatives of that universal revelation, that ancient knowledge that has been calling to prepared hearts since the beginning of time. Throughout His ministry, Jesus encountered faith in the most unexpected places. A Roman centurion whose trust amazed Him, a Canaanite woman whose persistence moved Him, a Samaritan woman at a well who recognized Him as Messiah. Over and over, the pattern repeated. Faith found outside the expected boundaries. Tomorrow is my birthday. 43 years of life, and only now am I beginning to understand the scope of what I've stumbled into, or what has found me. The academic world may have rejected my findings, but the truth doesn't require their validation. The evidence speaks for itself. The name endures. Tonight, I finally understand what the ancient voices in my dreams were trying to tell me. They weren't sharing archaeological data or historical trivia. They were bearing witness to something that transcends scholarship entirely. They were testifying to the faithfulness of a God who has never abandoned any people, who has never limited His revelation to a single culture, who has been calling His children home since before the foundation of the world. Enosh in the primordial darkness, calling upon a name older than civilization. Melchizedek in ancient Salem, blessing the father of faith with words that transcend genealogy. Jethro in the wilderness of Midian, recognizing the supremacy of the one true God. Job in the wasteland of Uz, trusting in a Redeemer he would never see, but somehow knew with absolute certainty. Balaam on the heights of Moab, prophesying a star that would guide seekers to their salvation. And countless others, their names lost to history but their voices preserved in the archaeological record, all calling upon the same eternal name. It's Christmas morning, the day Christians celebrate the incarnation of the Word, the moment when the name became flesh. I'm sitting in my empty apartment, surrounded by boxes of confiscated research and photocopied fragments of a mystery too vast for any single mind to contain. But I'm not alone. I haven't been alone since this journey began. The name that has echoed through human history, that has called to prepared hearts across every culture and century, is still calling, still revealing, still drawing all peoples to Himself. The God who said, "I am" to Moses at the burning bush is the same God who whispered His name to Enosh in the darkness before dawn. The same God who blessed Abraham through Melchizedek. The same God who was recognized by Jethro, trusted by Job, and prophesied by Balaam. The same God who became incarnate in Jesus Christ, who carried the divine name and nature into human flesh, who extended the invitation to know God personally to every tribe and tongue and nation. The mystery I've uncovered isn't just archaeological, it's theological, it's personal. It's the story of a God whose love transcends every boundary we try to erect, whose revelation exceeds every category we attempt to construct. And the story isn't finished. Somewhere tonight, in languages we've never heard, in places we've never imagined, hearts prepared by grace are still calling upon the name of the Lord, the same name that will be on every tongue when every knee bows, when the kingdoms of this world become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, when the mystery is finally revealed in all its fullness, when we see him face to face, when we know, even as we are known, the name endures forever. Yahweh. Recording ends. Dr. Sarah Chen's research materials were officially classified as archaeological artifacts of disputed authenticity by the International Council of Biblical Archaeology. Her whereabouts remain unknown. This journal was discovered in her abandoned Chicago apartment on January 7th, along with photocopied fragments of inscriptions that have since disappeared from all official records. The mystery continues,